host who, correct me if I'm wrong, may be a candidate for the worst wrestling podcast host of all time. Least professional, no presence, no knowledge, no balls, couldn't ask a serious question, just wants to kiss the wrestlers' asses. There's a reason you have no views, and there's a reason no one cares about your content. It's because you're an ass-kissing bozo who shouldn't be doing this.
Jim Cornette has trashed you. I'm like, what? And sure enough, he's him and his co-host, Brian Last, who I also have history with. Do I talk about this yet, or do I play the clip first? I'll share my history with Brian Last a little bit right now. Brian Last, I never liked, really. And to say that Brian Last knows who I am would probably be maybe generous, but to say I was not on his radar before would be I was on his radar for sure in several fashions. He has me blocked on X, so I did call him out at some point or another on X just because I don't like how he handles himself. Well, and fair. Hey, people didn't like how I handled myself during that whole rundown of Gagne and Magnum there. But he ended up, like I said, so he does the Arcadian Vanguard, obviously, a network, a really old school, kind of a cool vibe, a lot of cool wrestling historian stuff too. I've tuned into a couple episodes over the past several years, but I'm not going to say who exactly was involved or anything to that effect. But Brian Last does not get along with ad-free shows. I work for ad-free shows too. But I ended up, somebody asked me to do an interview on Arcadian Vanguard on one of the shows. I was like, heck yeah, I would love to. And so we chat about wrestling history and kind of my fandom and everything to that effect, and my experience in the wrestling writing world and everything to that effect. And so interview was great. Everything went fine. I was looking forward to hearing about it. And I was like, oh, maybe this will be kind of cool. It's like I've had my differences with, Brian Last in the past, but who knows? Like, you never know what can happen. So, like, maybe we can get along or whatever. Well, here, lo and behold, I get notified that the interview cannot be published. And so all it was just a really nice conversation with somebody that I'm very dear friends with now to a great extent. He's one of my favorite people in wrestling world. He's so smart. He has so much great experience. Can't praise him enough. But yes, so I have been on Brian Last's radar. So I'm sure maybe he doesn't know me that much, but I'm sure he probably has a gauge of what my name is because of what I've said and who I worked for and all those kind of elements coming into play. Let's hear what Brian Last has to say later on about me, and then we'll do a little breakdown. Let's take a look.
A host who, correct me if I'm wrong, may be a candidate for the worst wrestling podcast host of all time. Least professional, no presence, no knowledge, no balls, couldn't ask a serious question, just wants to kiss the wrestlers' asses. There's a reason you have no views, and there's a reason no one cares about your content. It's because you're an ass-kissing bozo who shouldn't be doing this.
All right. Whoa. Holy smokes. Shots fired, right? Wow, that's pretty intense. And I got to say, I'm all about having therapy and mental health and everything to that effect. So I kind of enjoy taking a deeper look into some of that stuff. Now, I am by no means a psychologist or a therapist or anything to that effect, and I will never diagnose, but I'll do a little psychoanalyzation since Jim and Brian have done that on their show before with certain people, psychoanalyze and make some assessments and assumptions about what is the mental state of some of these people. But I'm curious if Brian Last has ever heard of Carl Jung and The Shadow. Well, I pulled up some notes regarding this. I've kind of been very fascinated by Carl Jung. I tried reading some of his text. I bought his books. It's like deciphering code. It's because he's was a German, you know, German, psychologist and everything like that. So all this stuff is like transcribed into English, and it's very, very hard to read. I had to literally every few sentences I had to go back and reread. Anywho, but I got a gauge of what Carl Jung's about and kind of his philosophy, and I think it's a very fascinating philosophy regarding the shadow. And I think kind of parallels to maybe what Brian Last is thinking necessarily about me. Okay, so let's talk about this. I pulled this straight off. I typed in Carl Jung shadow. This is like the AI overview and stuff like that, but it basically encompasses the point I'm trying to get across here. So one of the most common ways the shadow appears is through projection, where individuals find themselves disliking or criticizing certain traits in others that they secretly hold within themselves. Becoming conscious of this shadow through shadow work, a process of self-reflection, dreams, and confronting projections is crucial for psychological wholeness and integration rather than perfection. So nobody's perfect, right? I'm not perfect. Brian's not perfect. Jim Cornette's not perfect. Magnum and Greg are not perfect. Okay, so how does the shadow manifest? The unconscious dark side, it's darkness within itself, holding all unwanted aspects of the personality that are pushed away from conscious awareness. Let's read that one more time. It's the darkness within the self, holding all unwanted aspects of personality that are pushed away from the conscious awareness. So it's traits you might not like about yourself. And then it's also, there's repressed traits. This includes social taboos like cruelty, anger, and jealousy, but also potentially positive traits like hidden creative potential, instincts, vitality that were rejected and repressed. Okay, so you think about this from that aspect, cruelty, anger, jealousy. I don't know if he's necessarily jealous. I don't have a whole lot of YouTube views. Browsing media is still hopefully on the up and up here where we're keep on plugging away. But yeah, don't know how jealousy is. Maybe he's jealous in a certain fashion that I show my face and I'm able to interact with people. We never see what Brian Last looks like. He always has, it's just the great Brian Last, who's the man behind the curtain, so to speak. So maybe there's a little jealousy there. But I mean, in that little moment, there's anger. It seems like pretty cruelty stuff. He said some pretty harsh shit there. So yeah, how's the shadow manifest here? Through projection. One of the most common ways the shadow appears is through projection, where individuals find themselves disliking or criticizing certain traits in others that they secretly hold within themselves. So let's go back and listen again to what Brian Last had to say about me. Let's go back.
And the host who, correct me if I'm wrong, maybe a candidate for the worst wrestling podcast host of all time. Least professional, no presence, no knowledge, no balls, couldn't ask a serious question, just wants to kiss the wrestlers' asses. There's a reason you have no views, and there's a reason no one cares about your content. It's because you're an ass-kissing bozo who shouldn't be doing this.
Man, so the ass-kissing bozo is something that really stands out to me. Straightforward, I said it already. Like, I'm friends with Greg and Magnum. I know who they are. I appreciate who they are. So I do have a bias. I will not disparage them. I'm not gonna, attack them and put them on the defense. I wanted to give them a platform to speak their mind. Who does Brian Last host a podcast with? Jim Cornette. Who else does he host a podcast with? He might do some stuff on Arcadian Vanguard, but you never hear him anywhere else. So what is his meal ticket? It's Jim Cornette. Who does he interact with all the time? Jim Cornette. Brian Last is a pretty big ass kisser. So he calls me the worst podcast host possibly of all time. He says I have no balls. He says everything to that effect. Where, dude, you do your own show here. And I'm kind of thinking that's how you feel about yourself. You're seeing these traits that you don't like in yourself, your insecurity of putting this out there about me so harshly, where you act like you don't know me whatsoever. You have no idea who I am. You act like that. I think you probably have a gauge for who I am at the very bare minimum. And so for you to just go on the attack to me like that, Like, that was direct shots to me. Just some nobody who's interviewing Greg Gagne, Magnum TA. He went over, right? I don't know. That's my perspective. So let's talk about uncautious behavior in the shadow. Unacknowledged shadow aspects can lead to a sudden, uncontrolled reactions, irritability, even cruel behavior as suppressed energy seeks an outlet. His outlet is right there in front of us. Trashing me, going for the jugular. And wow, he did.